Food chains and food webs, 19.2. Please don't forget to go back to the objectives to make sure that you covered the lesson properly. What's a food chain? The food chain is the sequence of the passage of energy from one organism to another. So it's a diagram that shows the energy flow in a habitat or in an ecosystem. So let's take a deeper look. Here we start with the plant. Why do we always start with the plant? We always start with the plant because it is the only organism that's capable of changing the light energy into chemical energy, as we agreed before. So it's the only organism that can capture sunlight and change it into the chemical energy in food. All of the other organisms consume it or depend on it, and that's why we call all of the other organisms consumers. Only plants or only organisms that are capable of making photosynthesis are called producers. So, first we start with the producer, and then we go to the herbivore. So herbivores are a type of consumers that only consume herbs or plants. That's why we call them herbivores. And the arrow in the food chain represents the energy flow. So energy moved from the producer here into the herbivore or the primary consumer when it consumed the plant. After the herbivore comes the carnivore. So the carnivore gets its energy from eating other animals or their products. So the energy will flow from the herbivore to the carnivore. And that's why the herbivore is always a primary consumer or a first consumer. Wait, why didn't I call the plant, since it's the first thing, the primary consumer? Take care, plants are not consumers. Plants are only producers. So that's why only the second animal or the second organism in a food chain is called the primary consumer because it's the first consumer. And then the carnivore will be in the position of the third point of the food chain or the third trophic level. So we call all of the stages of the food chain trophic levels. Producers always lie in the first trophic level, and herbivores must be in the second trophic level. Can we find the carnivore in the second trophic level? Of course not, because carnivores will not be able to eat producers. They will never be able to eat producers, so they will never be a primary consumer, and accordingly you will never find them in the second trophic level. You will always find them starting the third trophic level. And herbivores must be the primary consumers, and they must be in the second trophic level. They can never go past the second trophic level. Okay. Types of consumers. We have herbivores, and they have to be primary consumers, and they have to be in the second trophic level. And carnivores, and these are the animals that hunt and eat other animals or their products. You must find them starting the secondary consumer, which means that herbivores will always be in the second trophic level only, while carnivores you will find them starting the third trophic level and going on from the third trophic level to the fourth and maximum to the fifth. So this is an example of a food chain. You have first the producer in the first trophic level, and then primary consumer in the second trophic level, secondary consumer in the third trophic level, tertiary consumer in the fourth trophic level, and then final consumer in the fifth trophic level. Okay, why don't we have 6 and 7? That's because the energy decreases while it's passing from one trophic level to another, because some of the energy will be used by the organism itself to survive and live for its own aerobic respiration, to get energy for different needs of its body. So that's why energy will decrease while it's passing from one trophic level to the other. That's why the food chains do not exceed, except in very rare situations, 5 trophic levels. So why don't I see the decomposer? Because the decomposers can come out from any trophic level. They should not be just at the end of the food chain like this, because if plants die, they will get broken down by decomposers, and so on any other trophic level. So that's why decomposers do not come here as a final consumer. Always the 5th trophic level is the final consumer. So here, as you see, from each trophic level, you can see a decomposer coming out. Okay, so let's look at the definitions. Remember, definitions are easy marks. Please memorize them correctly, especially all of the keywords in the definition. So what's a food chain? It is a diagram showing the flow of energy from one organism to the next, and it has to begin with a producer. With the trophic level of the food chain, some of the energy will be lost. What does this mean? Energy cannot be destroyed. Yes, he does not mean that energy will be lost and go away. No, it will change into another form, but it will not be passed to the next consumer due to the consumption by aerobic respiration of the organism itself. So it will not be passed to the next trophic level. There are few chains with more than 5 organisms. Why? Because there will be no enough energy to have more and more organisms in this chain. What's a food web? It's when the different food chains interconnect together. What do I mean by this? I mean that for each individual in the ecosystem, they don't have just only one source of food. So that's how different food chains interact together. As you can see here in this example, for the frog, for example, here is eaten by 2 different organisms. This is how the food chains interact together. This is one food chain, and this is another food chain, and this is another food chain. They are all interacting together in a food web. Okay. What is a producer? It is the organism that can make its own organic nutrients by using energy from sunlight by photosynthesis. So please, if he asks you to define producer, do not say plants, because there are other producers. Some of them are fungi and some of them are bacteria. Any organism that can do photosynthesis is a producer. So please make sure that you mention this definition. What's a consumer? It's an organism that gets its energy by feeding on other organisms or their products. What's a herbivore? Or if you're asked about a primary consumer, it's the animal that gets its energy by eating only plants. Carnivore, by eating other animals. Tertiary consumer, that gets its energy by eating the secondary consumer. Okay, what's a decomposer? It's the organism that gets energy from breaking down dead organisms or their waste. Like what? Like feces, urine, any organic waste. See, now this is a decomposer working, breaking down this fruit and returning the nutrients to the environment. Okay. Now, what's a pyramid of number? The pyramid of number shows in each bar the amount of organisms that occupy this level in the environment. What do I mean? The first trophic level here contains, of course, the producers. Here, the producers are grass. So they are occupying the bottom level of the pyramid of number. And the next trophic level must have the herbivores, and the third and the fourth will have the secondary consumer and the final consumer. So there is a problem with the pyramid of number. Here in grass, it is a lot. But what if the producer is just one tree? So what will you see? You will see it looking like this. The tree represented as 1, and then the caterpillars with their big number, and then you will see the numbers changing, as you can see here, for example. But is this accurate? The amount of energy in a full tree is equal to the energy even in 100 caterpillars? Of course not. The tree has a lot of energy more than even if I have 100 caterpillars. So that's why the pyramid of biomass is more accurate. Why? Because it is showing the quantity of biomass in each trophic level. So even if I have just one tree, if I weigh this tree against the 100 caterpillars, I will still have a bigger base of my pyramid, because the biomass or the dry mass of the tree will be much bigger than even 100 caterpillars. So now that's why the pyramid of biomass is more biologically accurate. Okay, so this is the comparison between the pyramid of number and the pyramid of biomass in the same ecosystem. Which one is more accurate? Of course, the pyramid of biomass. That's why we say that pyramids of biomass are better than pyramids of number, because they take the size of the organism into account. They give us much better idea of the quantity of energy in each level than the pyramid of number does. Let's answer some questions together. Figure 7.1 shows a food web in a rainforest. So here's the food web. Name the organism in the food web shown in 7.1 that can trap light energy to produce sugar. It is the mahogany tree. Why can't I say produces? Because he's asking you to name from the food web. Please make sure you read the question carefully, because if you write producer here, I know that it's scientifically correct, but it will not be accepted as an answer. Name one secondary consumer from the food web. You're going to look at the secondary consumers. So here you go. This is the primary consumer, secondary consumer. So it's gonna be either the warbler bird or the tanager bird. Complete one food chain from this food web. Write the name of one organism in each box. So he asked you to extract the food chain from this food web. Do not just make up a food chain. Make sure that you extract it from the food web given. First, we must start with the producer, and the producer here is the mahogany tree. And then I can choose any of the food chains here that will give me 4 trophic levels. So I chose the wasp, and then tanager bird, and then finally the hawk owl or the bird. What do the arrows in the food chain represent? They represent the flow of energy. That's why you have to make sure, if you're drawing a food chain, that the arrow goes from the animal where the energy is being transferred to the animal that receives the energy. Some local people were paid to catch werber for the pet trait. Explain why the number of tanagers and forest mice might get smaller if all of the warblers were removed from the forest. So we will look here. Why will they get smaller in number of population? That's because when the number of warblers decrease, the hook owl here will only choose from 2 choices instead of choosing from 3. So now it's gonna consume the tanager bird and the forest mice more. So that's why their number will decrease. A group of scientists observed the animals in the forest. In table 7.1 shows the average number of each type of animal in one mahogany tree. What are these numbers? These are the trophic levels, and this is the number of the animal in this specific animal and its trophic level, as you can see in the table. Use the information from table 7.1 to calculate the total number of animals at each trophic level. So you're going to use the information here to fill this one. So trophic level 2. How many animals can you see in trophic level 2? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You will add their numbers together and you will get 100. Same with trophic level 3. They will be 9 and then 2. Now you're asked to make a pyramid of number for this food web. So what are you going to do? The first level will be the mahogany tree. And then you will add all of the animals in trophic level 2 and make a much broader level than the one below. Make sure that the proportions are correct. For example, when you put trophic level 3, you have 9 animals. They have to be more than the one or bigger than the one, but way less than the 100. And then finally, the owl hook, there were only 2 of this, so it's gonna be bigger than the mahogany tree, less than this one, and much less than this one. Many scientists believe that a pyramid of biomass is more useful than a pyramid of numbers. So just one extra information would be needed to draw a pyramid of biomass. Of course, it is the dry mass of each type of organism. The size of the arrows shows an approximate relative amount of energy passing from one stage to the next in the food chain. So the bigger the arrow, the more the energy. Which chain represents the energy losses between the trophic levels? It's going to be B, because of course this is the amount of energy produced by the sun and received by the grass is much bigger than the one taken by the rabbit from the grass, and also it is way bigger than the one taken by the fox from the rabbit. The diagram shows a food web. Which organisms occupy the same trophic level? So you're going to divide this food web into 2 food chains and write the trophic levels. Here is first trophic level, second, and then third. And here, this is the first, second, third, and then fourth. So now the 2 organisms occupying the same trophic level will be 3 and 5. It's trophic level 3, and here it's also trophic level 3. The diagram shows a simple food web. What must organism J be? Organism J gets its energy from organism H, that gets its energy from solar energy. So this makes organism H a producer, and after producer there must be a herbivore. At each stage in the food chain, energy is lost. What is a result of this? What comes out of this? What comes out is that there are very few food chains with more than 5 organisms. Rabbit eats grass and fox eats rabbits. Foxes eat rabbits. What would cause the highest increase in the number of rabbits? If grass is more, the food is more and fewer foxes. the animals that consume them less. So this means that their number will increase. The numbers in the diagram below show the amount of energy in kilojoule transferred through a part of an ecosystem. So light energy transferred to the plants are 88,000 kilojoules. Some of the energy lost, 73,000 kilojoules. Now, these are the representations. How much energy in kilojoule is transferred from herbivore here to the carnivore here? How will you get it? You are going to look at the amount of energy that the herbivore received and the amount of energy the herbivore lost. And you're going to deduct the energy lost from the energy received. So it's going to be B. Okay, the diagram shows some feeding relationships in a woodland area. Which of the labeled animals are in competition with the seed-eating insects for food? So you're going to look at the seeds and the insects that eat the seeds and see what other organism eats seeds, and it's gonna be the finches. Which pathway is taken by the energy from the sun? It's gonna be C. First, the energy will be stored in plants and then trapped by the chlorophyll, and then it will be trapped as chemical energy in the carbohydrates. Thank you, and I hope this video helps you study.